I travel a lot for work. Different cities, different hotels, it's all routine. You check in, sleep, leave. Nothing special. But this time, I checked into a hotel I wish I had never set foot in. It was late, past midnight, when I arrived at a small, old hotel on the outskirts of town. The neon sign outside flickered, barely staying lit. Clearview Inn. But there was nothing clear about this place. I was exhausted, just wanted a bed. I walked inside, and immediately the air felt heavy, thick. The lobby was empty, except for an old woman behind the desk. Her skin looked pale, almost gray under the dim yellow lights. She didn't say much, just slid the key across the counter and muttered, "Room 306. Elevator's out. You'll have to take the stairs." Fine. I grabbed my bag and started up the steps. But when I reached the third floor, something felt wrong. The air was colder up here. I could see my breath. The hallway stretched long, dimly lit by flickering lights. The carpet beneath my feet was damp and smelled awful, like something had rotted into the fibers. I walked past doors, counting the numbers. 301, 302, 303. But then the numbers skipped. 305, 307. I stopped. Where was room 306? I turned around, scanning the walls. I must have missed it, but no, it wasn't there. I walked back toward 305 and knocked. No answer. I knocked on 307. Silence. A chill ran down my spine. Maybe the woman at the desk made a mistake. I turned back, ready to head downstairs. But then, a door behind me opened. I turned, my heart pounding. There it was, a door that wasn't there a moment ago. Room 306. I stood frozen, staring at the door. The number 306 hung on a rusted plate, the edges covered in dust. The door itself was old. Too old. Like it had been there for decades. Yet I knew it hadn't been there seconds ago. Slowly, I stepped closer. The door was open just a crack, revealing only darkness inside. I didn't want to go in, but my key said 306. I pushed the door open. The room was freezing, much colder than the hallway. The walls were covered in faded, peeling wallpaper. A single bed sat in the middle, its sheets neatly tucked. Too perfect, like no one had ever used them. The air smelled stale. Dust swirled in the dim light from a small lamp. I stepped inside and shut the door behind me. That's when I saw it. Across from the bed was a large, dusty mirror. Its glass was warped, like something was pressing against it from the other side. I stared at my reflection. Then I noticed it wasn't exactly right. I raised my arm. My reflection did the same. I tilted my head. So did it. But then, it kept moving. Even after I had stopped, I gasped, stepping back, but my reflection stood still, staring at me. And then, someone was knocking. Not at the door, at the mirror. My chest tightened. The knocking, it wasn't loud. It was soft, almost hesitant, like someone was testing to see if they could get through. I didn't move, didn't breathe. The room fell silent. Then, a whisper, muffled, from inside the mirror. I stepped back. My reflection still hadn't moved. Its face was still turned toward me. I reached for my phone, my hands shaking, and turned on the flashlight. The second the light hit the mirror, a hand slammed against the glass. I ran for the door, but I twisted the handle, locked. My breath came fast, panicked. The mirror, the reflection, it was changing. The face was no longer mine. It was someone else. A man, pale, gaunt, with hollow black eyes. He pressed his hands against the inside of the mirror, his mouth moving in silent words. Then, he smiled. Not a normal smile, no. His lips stretched too far, his teeth were too many. I pounded on the door, yanking at the handle. The whispering turned to laughter. Low at first, then rising, echoing. The light flickered. And then, the door unlocked. I ran, down the hallway, down the stairs, past the empty front desk. Outside, I gasped for air. The night was silent. The hotel behind me looked different. The lights in the windows were off. The neon sign was gone. I turned back, staring up at the building. And that's when I saw it. A face, peering from a third-floor window. Those hollow black eyes, staring, smiling. I never checked out. I never even went back for my bag. But one thing still haunts me. Days later, I searched for the hotel online. It doesn't exist. No records, no reviews, nothing. Like it was never there. But I know the truth. I stayed in room 306, and something else is still there, waiting for the next guest. It was a last-minute business trip. The company booked me at an old hotel downtown, the kind that had been there for decades, with antique furniture and hallways that stretched too long. I checked in late, around 11 p.m. The woman at the front desk barely looked at me as she slid my key across the counter. "Room 709. Elevator's that way," she muttered. Her voice was flat, almost robotic. I nodded, grabbed my bag, and headed toward the elevator. But just as I stepped inside, "Wait!" Her voice made me freeze. I turned back. She looked up at me for the first time. Her eyes were off, like she wanted to say something but couldn't. Finally, she shook her head. "Never mind. I should have asked. I should have listened to that hesitation. But I didn't. I just pressed the button for the 7th floor. The elevator doors slid open, and the moment I stepped into the hallway, something felt wrong. It was too quiet. No distant TV sounds, no muffled voices. Just silence. And the hallway? It was longer than it should have been. Dim lights flickered overhead, casting long, stretched-out shadows on the walls. The carpet was dark red, worn down in some places, like too many feet had walked this path, and never left. I walked down the corridor, counting the numbers. 701, 703, 705, and then I saw her, a woman, standing at the far end of the hallway. Her back was turned to me, long black hair hanging down her back, covering her face. She was barefoot, wearing a white nightgown that looked old. Too old. She wasn't moving, just standing, completely still. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. Something told me to turn around, to take the elevator back down and leave, but I didn't. I kept walking. I reached my door, room 709, but my hands were shaking as I slid the key in. I glanced back down the hallway. The woman was still there, but closer. She hadn't moved. Not that I saw, but she was closer. I pushed open my door, rushed inside, and slammed it shut. For a few seconds, I just stood there, breathing hard. I told myself it was fine, that she was probably just another guest. But deep down, I knew she wasn't. I tried to sleep, but something felt off in the room. The air was too still. Then, at exactly 12:03 a.m., someone knocked on my door. Soft, slow. My stomach twisted. I didn't move, didn't even breathe. Then, louder this time. I grabbed my phone and checked the peephole. Nothing. The hallway was empty. I let out a shaky breath, telling myself I imagined it. But just as I turned away, I spun back around, and my blood ran cold. The peephole. Something was standing right in front of it. Not a person, just hair. Long, black, hanging over the peephole. I stumbled back, my heart hammering in my chest. And then, the knocking started again. I clamped my hands over my ears. "Go away, please, just go away." And then, I waited. Seconds stretched into minutes. Finally, I worked up the courage to check again. I pressed my eye to the peephole, and this time, there was an eye staring back. I jumped back, nearly dropping my phone. My mind was screaming at me to leave, but my body refused to move. And then, something was trying to get in. I backed away, shaking, barely able to breathe. And then, I heard it. A whisper. "Let me in." A woman's voice, soft, sweet, wrong. I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my bag, ran to the door, and threw it open. The hallway was empty, except for one thing. A single bare footprint in front of my door. I ran, down the hallway, not daring to look back. I reached the elevator and slammed the button. The doors opened instantly, like it had been waiting for me. I stepped inside, panting. The doors started to close, and for a second I felt relief. But then, something moved in the hallway. The woman. She was standing there. But now, she was facing me. Her face was wrong. Her eyes were black voids, her mouth stretched too wide in a silent scream. And as the elevator door shut, she started running toward me. I squeezed my eyes shut. "It's over. It's over." The elevator shook. My stomach dropped. I looked at the panel. I had pressed L for the lobby, but the elevator. It was going up, to the 7th floor, back to her. I don't remember what happened next. I must have blacked out because the next thing I knew, I was waking up in my bed, at home. I don't know how I got there, but the worst part? On my nightstand was my hotel key, room 709, and beneath it, a single bare footprint. It was a long drive, and by the time I reached the hotel, it was nearly 1 a.m. The place wasn't fancy, just a roadside inn off the highway, the kind where the sign flickers and the lobby smells like stale coffee. The woman at the front desk barely looked up when I arrived. She was old, thin, with deep wrinkles carved into her face. I gave her my name and she typed slowly, like she was stalling. Then she frowned. 418, she muttered, almost to herself. She looked up at me. Are you alone? The question made me pause. Yeah. Why? She hesitated, then forced a tight smile. No reason. Enjoy your stay. I should have asked, but I was too tired. I took the key and headed for the elevator. I didn't notice her staring as I walked away. Room 418 was at the end of the hall. The hallway felt weirdly empty. No sounds of TVs, no murmuring guests, just me, and the room waiting for me. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. It looked normal, small, basic, bed, desk, TV, a closet near the bathroom. But the second I shut the door, something felt off. The air was thick, like the room had been sealed too long. I tossed my bag onto the chair and turned to lock the door. That's when I saw it. The closet door. It was open, just a crack, enough to see darkness inside. I froze. Had housekeeping left it open? Or had someone been in here? I walked over slowly and placed my hand on the door. It was cold. I hesitated, then pulled it shut. But the second it clicked into place, I heard something inside. A faint breath. I spun around, heart racing. But the room was empty. I told myself it was just my imagination. That's what I had to believe. I climbed into bed, trying to shake the uneasy feeling. The room was silent. Too silent. The kind of silence where you can hear your own heartbeat. I turned off the lamp, pulling the blanket over me. That's when I noticed it. A shadow in the corner of the room. I blinked. It was darker than the rest of the room. A tall shape standing by the closet, not moving, not breathing, just watching. My chest tightened. I fumbled for the lamp, my fingers shaking. The second the light flicked on, the shadow was gone. But the closet door? It was open again. I didn't sleep. I left the light on, watched TV at low volume, pretending everything was fine. Until sound. A slow creak. The closet door moving. I sat up, my pulse pounding. The closet was slowly opening. A long, slow creak. My mouth went dry. I grabbed my phone, my hands trembling, and turned on the flashlight. I aimed it at the closet. Empty. Nothing inside. But then, sound. A whisper, faint, almost too quiet to hear. A voice, soft. You're in my room. I dropped my phone. The closet door slammed shut. I barely slept. Kept the lights on. Pulled the chair in front of the closet door. Morning couldn't come fast enough. As soon as the sun rose, I packed my bag. I wanted out. But as I grabbed my stuff, I saw it. On the bathroom mirror. A handprint. Not mine. Not fresh. But faint. Like someone had pressed their palm against the glass from inside. I ran. At the front desk, the old woman saw me coming. She didn't look surprised. "Did you sleep okay?" she asked. Her voice was too calm. I hesitated, gripping my bag tighter. Then I said it. "Who else has stayed in that room?" For a second, she just stared at me. Then finally she sighed. "Nobody." She glanced around, lowering her voice. "That room's been empty for years." I felt a chill crawl up my spine. She leaned in. "But he doesn't like it when people stay there." I didn't ask who he was. I didn't want to know. I just left. And as I drove away, I glanced up at the hotel one last time. There, in the window of room 418, was a shadow, tall, still, watching me leave.